Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agreeing and Disagreeing. My name is Charles Theodore Monk, and I will be your presenter today. So, I will be with you guys for the next 30 minutes. So, for those of you who are here and can hear me, please just let me know by saying something in the chat. You could say hi, you could say hello, or simply yes, I can hear you. Because that way, I know you guys can hear me. Because let's be honest, it will be a little difficult for you guys to understand everything I want to say if you cannot hear me. So let me say it one more time for those of you who are just coming in, please go ahead and let me know you can hear me by saying hi, hello, or yes, I can hear you in the chat, and then we'll continue from there. All right, let's give about another 30 seconds just so everyone has a great amount of time or a good amount of time to come in if they are running a little late. Because let's be honest, sometimes we all run a little late, so we'll be mindful of everyone's time. But for those of you who are here who I've met before and I've done a presentation with or a class, I'm glad to see you guys again. And for those of you who it's our first time meeting, welcome. I'm glad to meet you guys, and I am really excited to spend the next 30 minutes with you guys. So, guys, while we wait for others to come in, I want to encourage everyone to have a maybe a piece of paper, a notebook and a pen, or even a cell phone to help you take pictures of what we're going to learn today. Because, in my opinion, it's just as important to practice what we learn again after, right? It's very hard to keep information just in our heads because sometimes information can come in through this ear and straight out the other, right? So it's good to be able to take down notes or simply take pictures of things so that you can practice them in your own free time later. So I encourage you guys to do that. And like I mentioned earlier, guys, we're going to go on for about 30 minutes today. All right, I'm going to do my best to get you guys out of here at that 30-minute mark, which should be around 8 p.m. And we might finish a little bit before, we might finish a little after. It all depends on the flow of everything today. But I'm going to do my best to stick next to that 30 minutes because I want to be mindful of you guys' time. All right, so let's go ahead and think about agreeing and disagreeing. All right, and let me mention if we have any questions that you guys might have through the presentation, I encourage you guys to save them till the end, and I will do my best to answer you guys' questions then. And lastly, I want to say I hope everyone's doing well, everyone's safe, and everyone's having a good time as best as you can in this time where we're all together. So, guys, let's get started on our topic today of agreeing and disagreeing. And I want to talk about three quick points about what I feel like agreeing and disagreeing are and why they are important for us to learn and for us to practice. So, simply, agreeing and disagreeing is number one, it's a part of life. No matter who we are, no matter what situation we may be in, we are going to come across a situation where we are going to agree with someone or we are going to disagree with someone, right? It's almost impossible for us to escape it. What we're gonna have to deal with is learning how to agree and learning how to disagree. So that's why it's super important for us to practice situations we will encounter so that when we encounter these situations, we will learn and we will know how to behave, how to act, and what to say. All right, so that's our first point. Our second point I want to talk about is simply agreeing, and agreeing is used to express. So it is used to express how you feel on a situation, right? A lot of the times when we agree or disagree with something, it's because we have our own beliefs and our own thoughts, right? And simply when we agree with someone or if we counter them and we disagree, we are just expressing ourselves and our beliefs on a topic, right? Maybe sometimes we may be right, sometimes we may be wrong, or simply it might just be an opinion. But it is best to use an agreement or a disagreement to express how we think and what we believe and what we behave. And the last thing I want to talk about is that simply agreeing and disagreeing is used to express your opinion, right? Not the other person's opinion. When we agree or we disagree with someone, it is based on us, right? A person can believe whatever they want, they can say whatever they want, and they can think whatever they want. Same with us, right? Everyone is entitled to their own opinion and to their own thoughts. So simply, if we agree with someone, our opinion is the same as theirs, right? And if we disagree with someone, that means our opinion is different compared to what they believe or compared to what they think, right? And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes we may be correct, sometimes we may be wrong. But at the end of the day, it's a very important skill to learn how to agree with someone and how to disagree with someone. So that's what we're going to go ahead and learn today. All right. But before we go into anything too deep, we're going to split into two things. All right. We're going to first focus on agreeing, how to agree, and some vocabulary related to it. And then we'll move on to our second half, which is about disagreeing. All right. So let's focus first on the whole part of agreeing. And I want to touch quickly on what agreeing means. All right. So agreeing simply means to have the same opinion as someone else. All right. So simply, if we are agreeing with someone, it could be a friend, a coworker, a family member, whoever it would be. If we agree with them, we have the same opinion as them. Maybe we have the same thought process, maybe we believe the same things, but simply we have the same opinion, right? What they are saying, we also believe, right? What they think, we also think. So, therefore, when we are using the whole topic of agreeing, a lot of the times it could get very complicated and it could get very difficult to express ourselves in the way that we agree with them, right? So, what we're going to do is we're going to go into some vocabulary that relates to agreeing so that we know how to simply tell someone that we agree with them and how to tell someone that maybe we have the same mind as them. All right. So, our first one we're going to touch is the word concur. All right. Now, I know some of the vocabulary we may touch today may be a little new or advanced, but it's always important to add new vocabulary to our speech so that we have diversity, right? Instead of just saying, I agree with you, sometimes it might be nice to use a similar word that means the same thing. Okay? So, our first word is to concur, and that simply means to be of the same mind. So, you can say that concur and agree mean the same thing, all right? That they are a synonym, that they mean the same thing, right? Because agreeing, you have the same opinion. Concur, you have the same mind or the same thoughts. So they mean the same thing, right? So, like how I mentioned earlier, instead of just saying, I agree with you, one thing that we can do is we can say that I concur with you, right? It makes us seem more professional, maybe add some diversity to our speech, right? And one and someone says, I concur you. Is that right? I concur with you. All right. You have to make sure you have that preposition of with. It would be, I concur with you. All right. So make sure when we use the word concur that we use it in the right context, right? So now that we know what it means, we know that instead of you saying agreeing, or if we want to agree with someone, we can simply use the word concur. One good trick for people who are trying to add diversity in their language, maybe you can say, I think that is a great thing. I agree, and I would concur with you, right? Instead of saying agree twice, you can take one of the agrees and you can switch it to concur. That way, you have a big variety in your language. And trust me, that will take you a long way with your speech. It's very good to have a lot of distance in our speech and to make ourselves look as professional and fluent as possible. All right? So now let's go to our second word, and that is a phrase, and that means to see eye to eye. All right? And what I mean to see eye to eye is to be in full agreement. All right? So this is a phrase when you are 100% agreeing with someone else. Okay? Because when you see eye to eye, it simply means you are at the same eye level as them, right? You see the same things that they see, you believe the same things that they believe to full agreement, all right? So 100% agreement, you can say see eye to eye. You cannot use see eye to eye if you're only 30% agreement or even 50%, right? Halfway. You have to be in full agreement to use the word eye to eye. To use that phrase, 100% agreement. Remember that. All right? It can't be maybe 70% yes, 30% no. That means you cannot use see eye to eye. You have to use see eye to eye with 100% agreement, right? Maybe, for example, you have a family member who has the same opinion with you, right? You concur with them 100%. So what you can say is, I see eye to eye with you. I agree with you in full agreement. All right, so that's a good phrase for us to use to express the depth of our agreement, right? It shows that we agree with them fully. Okay, so that is what it means to see eye to eye. Next one we're gonna do. Let me switch where my head is. All right, I'll move to the bottom right of the screen, and our third one is an accord. All right. So somebody said, "Can I 75% occur with someone?" Yes. So that would be correct because concur you can say is a lesser version or a not as extreme version as see eye to eye, right? When you say see eye to eye, remember, I said it's full agreement. So concur, you still have to agree with them, right? You are the same mind, the same thoughts, but maybe you have some things of your own. So it could not be 100%. All right, so concur, it could be less than 100% or fully 100%. But no matter what, see eye to eye is 100%. All right, let's remember that. So now let's focus on our third one of agreeing, and that is an accord. All right, so at the bottom of the screen, accord spelled with two C's. Remember that, super important. Accord means an official greeting or an official agreement, you can say. So when we are referring to an accord, we can think of using this in, for example, a business standpoint or in a work standpoint, or even sometimes in a school standpoint for those of you who are still in school, right? When we have an accord, it's an official greeting, an official agreement, right? So when we use this, for example, if you make a business deal, right? Maybe you have and a business partner, you make a contract or somebody signs a contract, right? You make an accord because that is an official greeting, an official agreement, all right? So those are sort of our three different levels to agreeing, you can say. All right, the first one is to concur, to be of the same mind, right? You can be maybe 50, 75% agreement, or it could be 100%, right? Depends on how you use it. But remember, no matter what, see eye to eye is full agreement. 100%, there's no differences between the two of you. All right, and the last one is the more formal setting for those of you who are in business or in work, and that is an accord, when you have an official greeting or an official agreement. All right, so we focused on our sense of having to focus on agreeing. So we're going to switch now to our second thought process, which is to disagree. All right, so the opposite. So when I use the word disagree, I am simply meaning that I am to be of a different opinion or to disapprove of, right? So this is the exact opposite as it means to agree. So in this case, somebody says something that you don't believe is true. You have a different opinion or you disapprove of it and you're saying that they're wrong. You will disagree with them, right? And it can be disagreements to different levels. Maybe you could be 50-50, right? You agree with some of it and you disagree with some of it, but you still would have a different opinion at the end of the day, right? So now that we know the difference, the main difference between agreement and disagreement, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go over three vocabulary words that talk about disagreeing. And same thing, they are three different levels to what it means to disagree with someone. Okay? The first one is to contradict. And to contradict simply means to assert the opposite. So simply, you want to say the opposite of what someone is saying, right? Maybe you are doing a business project, you are in work or whatever, and you're working in a team. And somebody maybe makes a plan or they make a project that you don't really like or you don't approve of. So what you're going to do is you're going to contradict them, right? Or maybe somebody says something you simply don't believe. You are going to contradict them. You are going to say what you consider to be the opposite, right? Maybe somebody says that they think this is a good plan. And for you, you don't think it's a good plan. So you are going to contradict them. You are going to say or assert the opposite, right? So to assert is a big word. So when I say to assert, it simply means to believe confidently, right? So when you contradict someone, it means that you are not just in a little bit of a disagreement with them, but you are very confident that you believe in the opposite of what they are saying, or you are very confident in what they are saying is wrong, right? So that's what it means to contradict. That's our first phrase when it talks about disagreeing, all right? Our second one is a debate. Now, when we use the word debate, we are simply referring to a more formal discussion of different viewpoints. So this is used a lot, for example, in politics, right? For those of you who are keeping in touch with the news on politics and things like that, there are different parties in the government, right? And what they do is they debate. They have different discussions of different views. But this is never kept in sort of a ill-tempered. Their emotions are most of the time, not all the time, their emotions are most of the time tame, and they explain their side and they let the other team explain their side. All right, so you can use this as well, maybe in a work setting, a formal setting, and it simply means to have a different viewpoint and to talk about it, right? It doesn't mean you're going to just say what you believe. When you debate, you also want to hear what the other person or the other party or team has to say, right? That way you can come to sort of a consensus of which team is correct or which team is right, all right? So that's what it means, right? Debate, remember, is a more formal discussion of different views. You are talking to each other, learning why the other opponent has a different viewpoint than you. And remember, you have to keep your temper in a debate, right? Most of the time, you can't debate and start yelling at people. When you debate, you have to keep it structured and you be as formal as possible. Okay? So that's what it means to debate. It's a formal discussion of different views. And our last one we'll go over simply means to lock horns. Now, this is an extreme version of disagreeing. So when you lock horns with someone, it simply means that you are at the point of engaging in a conflict. So this is when it's, like I said, extreme version of disagreeing. You no longer are just disagreeing and have different viewpoints. When you lock horns, it turns into an argument. Maybe the emotions get high, maybe you disagree with each other, you're yelling, and things like that. So when a situation like that happens, you can also say it's a extreme version of disagreeing. You can also say it's an argument. But a good vocabulary phrase for you to use is to lock horns. And this is referring to two animals when they lock horns in a fight. So basically, when you lock horns, it is a verbal fight, right? You and someone else are disagreeing or debating in a very extreme point where it's basically a fight. And it happens, right? This can happen in the family, with friends, co-workers, bosses, whoever it is. Locking horns happens. But instead of saying, I got in an argument today, it sounds so much better if you say, I locked horns with someone today, right? It makes your sentence so much more interesting and captivating to the person that is listening, all right? So I hope these gave you guys a good idea of a bunch of different vocabulary words that we can use and how they help us in our speech, right? And remember, they all have different levels. So we have to make sure we remember how to use them correctly, all right? So that finishes now our vocabulary. So now that we know what our vocabulary means and we've gone over our terms, we're going to do two quick exercises for us to practice what we learned. Oh, all right, so basically we have three options at the bottom of the screen. We have see eye to eye, locked horns, and debate. And we have a sentence that is incomplete. What we're going to do for this exercise is we are going to put the correct vocabulary term into the blank in the sentence. All right, so I want you guys to let me know in the chat what you guys think, all right, is the correct answer for this one. Is it they see eye to eye and got in a fight? Is it they locked horns and got into a fight? Or is it they debate and got into a fight? What do you guys think? Is this to see eye to eye, locked horns, number 2, or number 3, debate? I'll give you guys about 10 seconds and then I'll go ahead and talk about our answer. All right? All right. So our correct answer, you guys have done well for the most part. It is locked horns, right? Remember, it's not going to be debate because debate is a formal structure, right? You are not getting into a fight or it's not a heavy argument when you are debating. And it's not see eye to eye because that's agreeing, right? So the correct answer is locked horns. Remember, because locked horns is more of a verbal argument or a verbal fight. Good job. All right. And now our last exercise for today is number 2, and it says the soldiers came to an blank, all right, accord, and agreed on a ceasefire, right? So this one's interesting, all right, because basically our three options are nothing. All right, which is accord. So accord is the correct one to be next there because it's in the sentence, right? So I know, let me explain so it's not confusing. So basically, this one has a word already put into it, which is accord. So what I want you guys to tell me if this is the correct word put in the sentence, or it's wrong, or it should be contradict and debate. Go ahead, let me know. Is this a correct sentence already, or should we change it to something else? Are the soldiers came to an accord, or the soldiers came to a contradict, or the soldiers came to a debate. All right. So remember, accord is already there. That's why it's our option. Is this a correct word to use or is this wrong and we have to use something else? Go ahead. Let me know. Is this a correct answer? All right. So basically, our answer for here would be accord. All right. I know, a little tricky because it could be also debate and it could be accord. So basically, remember when we use an accord, it is a formal agreement on something, right? A debate is a structured disagreement. But what we are talking about here is a ceasefire. And that is when soldiers no longer fight, right? So basically, this is a correct sentence because it's saying the soldiers came to an accord, which is a formal agreement, and they agreed on a ceasefire, right? So this would be our answer. Accord, a formal agreement, not debate, because that is disagreeing, right? It would be an accord. But good job, guys. You guys are doing fantastic. Great job. So now that we've kind of finished all of our exercises today, we're going to go over a quick few pointers on some statements that we can use in our speech. All right. So let me move my head again to the bottom left because of the picture. But we're going to go over 2 agreeing statements today. The first one is no doubt about it. And when I simply use the phrase no doubt about it, I simply mean that there is no contradiction. All right. This is a complete correct statement, what you are saying. It's a version of seeing eye to eye, right? No doubt about it. You are correct. That's 100% with an agreeing statement. All right. Our second one is you have a point there. That is a way of maybe in a workplace, somebody is making a presentation, or in school, somebody's making a presentation as well. And you add on when you agree with what they are saying. And you're saying, oh, you have a point there. You're correct, right? So when you have some good agreeing statements, it's nice to have diversity. Like I've mentioned before, this whole presentation, it's super important to have diversity in our speech. So let's remember, no doubt about it, 100% agreement. And you have a point there. It's just acknowledging that they are correct. Okay? So that's what it means with the difference between these two. Now, let's float to the opposite. Let's switch it to 2 disagreeing statements. All right? Our first one is I beg to differ. So this is a unique way or a special way of saying that you disagree with someone, right? Because you are bringing in more of a debate kind of conversation that will happen next. Because when you say I beg to differ, you are being respectful, right? You are being formal, and then you are going to give your own opinion. So you're simply saying, I beg to differ. This is what I think. All right? So remember, I beg to differ is a nice formal statement to use when you are going to debate with someone. All right? And now, our next one we're going to talk about is a more casual statement when you can use whenever, and that is not necessary. Right? When you use not necessarily, it simply means that not necessarily might be correct. Maybe something you're saying is wrong, right? So that's what it means, all right? I beg to differ, a formal way of saying that you disagree, And it's used a lot of the times when you are debating with someone or with a group of people. While when you say not necessarily, that is more of a casual, everyday use of a disagreeing statement. All right? So now we've gone over this, I just want to talk about how to quickly express ourselves when we are either disagreeing or agreeing with someone. The first thing that is very important to do, no matter what, is to not interrupt. All right, in any conversation we have, it's super important to not interrupt. While there is a difference with acknowledging what someone is saying, you can say, yes, that's good, right? That's not necessarily a form of interruption. That could be a form of agreeing quickly or acknowledging to a person that you are listening. When you interrupt someone, you are going to the point of stopping them from talking. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure somebody else can say whatever they want so that when we speak, they will not interrupt us. All right? So that's point number one. Point number two, no matter what, it's a great conversational skill, and that is simply to be polite. So, no matter what, if you agree or you disagree with someone, be polite. I know it's hard to be polite when you disagree with someone and you think that they are wrong, but they are not going to listen to you if you lock horns with them and you start yelling, right? No matter what, we should do our best to simply be a polite person, right? No matter what, every situation, it's a great skill to practice to be polite, all right? And the last one we'll talk about quickly is to practice. So, what I mean by practice is to practice when you are talking about going in situations when you need to debate or agree or disagree with someone. So, essentially, I want you guys to practice vocabulary you learned today or vocabulary you already know so that when you get in a situation where you have to express yourself, you know what to say, right? Super important to always practice so that we don't get caught off guard. All right. So, guys, that wraps up all the information we're going to go over today. But let's do a quick summary of everything we learned. All right. So that our brains get refreshed. So, we went over what it means to agree and disagree, right? Agree to be of the same mind, and to disagree is to believe the opposite of someone else. And we also learned a lot of useful vocabulary and phrases to express our agreement or our disagreement. And we also just talked about how to express ourselves, right? Practice, be polite, and to not interrupt. So, guys, that wraps up all the information I learned today. I know 30 minutes flew by super, super fast, but what we're going to do now is we're in that Q&A section where if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them now, and I'll do my absolute best to answer whatever questions you guys may have. But for those of you who don't have any questions, I'm just going to throw two quick poll questions up, and I would really appreciate it if you answered them. So poll question number 1 says, did you find the webinar useful? So did you learn something today that you didn't know before? Did you maybe practice and remember something you learned a long time ago? And simply, did you benefit from this webinar? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want from you guys. We want to make sure you guys are learning and you guys are practicing and simply benefiting from another standpoint of learning something. All right? So that is the end of poll question number 1. Thank you guys for answering it. And we have one more poll and then we're going to wrap up, guys. We're almost at that 30-minute mark. So can you guys just fill out this last poll for me and then we'll finish in about a minute. So simply this question, would you like to participate in a similar event in the future? So would you want to do another webinar with me, with someone else, and simply stick around and try this other standpoint of learning rather than just on a one-on-one standpoint, and you get to interact with each other. So thank you guys for filling out these polls. I appreciate it a lot. So guys, before we end, I just want to give a quick shout out to Tutlo on our social media. The reason I say this is because social media is everywhere, right? Almost everyone uses it. So why not use it to get in touch with the English community? And when you are getting posted on our social media, you will see that there are a lot of useful posts about helping us learn our English. Maybe 2-3 minute videos where you get to practice something really quickly. And at the end of the day, remember, one of the best ways to learn, one of the best ways to practice something is to be surrounded by people on the same journey as you. So that's why I encourage you guys to check out us on social media. And our last thing I want to say from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you guys for coming into this webinar. I had such a great time spending the last 30 minutes with you guys talking about agreeing and disagreeing. And I hope I'll see you guys again. So for those of you who I'll see in the future, it was awesome. I look forward to our next meeting. Everyone stay safe, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon through a webinar or through a private lesson on the Tutlo platform. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.